Okay, this is the idea, just an idea for a different way of delivering a master's. The idea is that the master's will be delivered in 5 modular blocks over a calendar year. That an integral part of it would be that employers would be engaged, and the course would integrate work-based learning into the learning, into the structure of it. That the central idea is that a master's program or a series master's program would be based on a core competence, and then there would be 3 or more contexts associated with that, and that would make the distinction between the different masters. And that makes it easy to change the competency and easy to change the context. So it means you can develop new competencies within the same context, or new contexts within the same competency. The other thing about the masters is that it would be a blended masters, and it could be delivered to students full-time on campus, or it could be delivered to remote students. The other thing is that it facilitates and encourages interdisciplinary collaboration in a way that's well structured and mutually beneficial to both departments, or both schools, or faculties. Okay, so what does the structure look like? So you start off with a core competency, and the core competency I'm going to look at, based on my own interest, is games and gamification. And then I look at context. So there is an educational context, potentially a social or organisational change context. There's a health and well-being context in relation to games and gamification. You could have a marketing context, you could have a manufacturing context. There's a whole range of different contexts. I'm going to focus on the top 3 of these just for demonstration purposes, but also because I believe the 3 of them have the potential to fly as masters. But anyway, okay, so we start off. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to extend the loop here. Okay, so we're going to start off with games in education, and the SEM refers to the semester. Okay, so the first thing you do when students start off, they do games-based learning, reflective practitioner, and they look at games in the context specifically of education. So it's really preparatory, 15 credits between summer and Halloween. So that's semester 1A, part A. It's 15 credits that's looking at gearing them up as self-directed, reflexive practitioners. And by reflexive, I mean that not only do they think about things, but they act upon the learning. Then between Halloween and Christmas, they do games and gamification. In the first half of the first half of the second semester, they do pedagogy and technology enhanced learning. Then they look at research and games design between Easter and summer, and that research and games design prepares them to design a game for use in an educational context, but also how to research its effectiveness as a tool for learning, and that leads them on in the final semester. Sorry, it's out of screen there, but over the summer they do their research. Okay, so that's games in education, and the thing to note about it is that there's 20 credits, 5 credits in the first block and a full block in the second semester, which is exclusive to games in education. So those orange are the 2. The rest of those are not exclusive to games in education, and if we're looking at games for change, you add 2 other specialist blocks, social, organizational and community context, so you're setting the context in 5 credits, and then you're putting a 15 credit module specifically looking at games for change context, and then you have a new master's in games for change by changing 20 credits. And then you look at another context, which would be health and well-being. You add a health and well-being contextual module, and you add a health and well-being 15 credit module, and then you have your masters in games for health and well-being. Okay, so that's really what I'm proposing in terms of the structure. So if you look at it, and what I've highlighted here is, apart from the introductory modules which are done in the first half of the first semester and are preparing the students as learners in the particular context that they're interested in, there are 5 distinct blocks here, and those 5 distinct blocks can be delivered as postgraduate certificates, or can be postgraduate or special purpose awards, 15 credit special purpose awards, and so at the end of this process, over the course of a year, you have 3 masters and you have 5 certificates potentially to be delivered. So you have 3 MAs and 5 certificates on offer over a calendar year for the delivery of 130 distinct credits. Now, if you look at it, an MA is 90 credits. So for an extra 40 credits, you get 2 more MAs and 5 certificates. So, I mean, it is quite efficient in terms of its use of resources. Okay, the second thing I suppose I want to be clear about this is that the certificates should be delivered through partner departments. So what I mean by that is that the orange, green and pink certificates as outlined there should be delivered as certificates through another department. So for example, health and well-being could be delivered by the sports strength and conditioning team. They promote it as a certificate in games, health and well-being, and they recruit students into it. The students in the MA in Games and Health and Wellbeing, which is through the LSAD or whichever faculty is leading it or department is leading it, their students also sit in on that certificate. And perhaps some of the students who have come through strength and conditioning department or whatever, perhaps some of those will go on and do the masters, perhaps some of them won't. But what it means is, it means that the delivery of that certificate is done by another department, and there is a direct benefit back to that department in terms of their own student numbers and their own income through the certificate. So it means sharing the benefits, but also sharing the workload and sharing the marketing of the programs. And it means then that a department like LSAD or Applied Social Science, whoever leads on this, gets a route into a whole market that they wouldn't otherwise have done. Okay, so that's the idea. So the lead department in terms of the MA shares out some of the delivery and some of the benefits in terms of the delivery of the certificates to other departments, and then expands the potential market and expands the creativity within the program. The other thing is that the course should be delivered as a full-time blended learning program. Now, most of the students we would hope would be working, but I would say that it should be presented as a full-time program. And I think it's really important because the employers, the prospective employers who are going to facilitate their employees to attend this course, needs to engage with this and needs to give us a commitment as the educator that they will enable their students or their staff members to engage with a program of this scale while they're still in employment. And I mean, there are benefits to the employer as well, very tangible benefits that we could integrate into the program, but that, I suppose, that's part of the detail. Okay, so we have these suite of masters and certificates, and the context is games and gamification in the competences, games and education. The context is in those 3 contexts. It's very easy then to change and add another context. So you can have a 4th context, it could be business. You can have a 5th context, it could be military. You know, I mean, you can imagine the different contexts where gaming gamification might be and is being applied. Okay, but then how do you change the competency? Very straightforward. You go back to the core program and you put in, say, something like you wanted the competency to be digital design. So you just change the first module from games-based learning to digital design-based learning. You change one of the modules to digital design, and you change the research one to research and digital design. They're very similar. And a lot of the material could be used, but you have these distinct modules that create a different set of competencies, but all of the education modules are the same. So now you have 3 masters in digital design within the context of education, social change, and health and well-being. Potentially. I don't know, does this fit, because I don't know the digital design space, but the idea is to be able to in a reasonably structured way change the competency and the context. And in that way, so if you developed, say, programs, a range of different programs in games-based learning, gamification and gamification, digital design, possibly you could look at other core competencies. You could end up over a period of time with 8 or 9 or 10 master's programs where students are sharing their modules with people doing a range of different masters, but sharing the same competency or sharing the same context. And I suppose what this really means, a fundamental thinking, it means the program is no longer, or the feasibility of the masters is no longer dependent upon numbers on the masters. The whole optic around sustainability is numbers on the modules. So you could offer a master's program, and if one student attended, it's feasible because they're attending modules where there's 20 students and they make up the number 21. So the modules are feasible, and that makes the master's feasible. Now, you'd have to question whether you continue with a master's program with one, but we know sometimes demand for programs fluctuate, or there might be reasons where numbers decline for a particular master's. But it means that it gives you time to grow your masters, and it gives you time to disengage masters as well, without there being a huge pressure in terms of cost. Okay, so that's the idea. So how is it delivered? Just take a second to go through how it's delivered. So blended learning delivery. This is the suggestion. The suggestion is that so if you take a 15 credit certificate, and there's going to be 4 of them, you have work-based learning, you have 3 seminars, you have a webinar, look along the top there, you have online learning and online tutorials. So there would be 3 hours work-based learning for every student, and if they're in full-time employment, that's 3 hours of their full-time employment. If they're not in full-time employment, then we organise a work placement for them. Then the second element is seminars. There would be 3 seminars over the course of this certificate. There'd be one at the beginning, middle and the end, and there'd be 2 days, Friday and Saturday. Every week that there isn't a seminar, there'll be a webinar. What we mean by a webinar is a lecture, interactive lecture delivered online. So using something like Adobe Connect or WebEx or whatever the software you might use. But effectively what it is that you're delivering to a group who are present in the room potentially, and that's also broadcast to a group who are accessing it remotely, and it's done in an interactive way. Then each week you've 3 hours online lectures, and they're pre-recorded, they're put up, and the students access them at whatever point over the course of the week they can. In the case of the students who are present, that opportunity to lecture to them might be taken as the opportunity to record a significant amount of content then that will be put up online. Then online tutorials, so it's that the lecture would be available to the student for a period of 3 hours over the course of a week, should there be stuff that they want support on. So that gives you a total, I know you can't see the bottom line because of the technology that I'm using, but anyway, it gives a total of 150 or 145 contact hours for the 15 credit module, which is, I would say, is sufficient.